Ask him why he canceled the meeting with me.
I will. If I get him in here, I'll ask him that. But before that, there have been a couple other things in the news lately that actually both this month that I'd like to get your thoughts or maybe a little bit of a debrief on it. One being the hearing with NASA. What happened there?
I think, like the Pentagon, the other agencies, I think they're realizing, again, America believes, and the world, frankly, believes we're not alone. I think they smell dollars. NASA is... they're always hungry for money. They're trying to get to Mars. They're trying to do all this other stuff. Again, since 1947 at least, our government's been lying to us. Now all of a sudden they want money to study the issue. And I just, the folks that they had come talk to us the other day, I didn't know that the press wasn't invited. I would have not come to the meeting if I'd have known that, actually, because it was... they talked about nothing, and they talked about if something was spotted, who would be in charge of it. I think somebody even tweeted about it that, it'd be the Space Force. There again, you're your own agency. And then they talked about how they wanted to get with the other agencies, and so they could collaborate. That's the big word they always use. That's sort of a think tank word, collaborate. You hear that a lot. Like these leadership groups, we're gonna collaborate, and I think that's what it's just about money. They just want more money to study it, and I say, just turn loose the files, turn loose of everything you got. And then they said, well, what if you saw them with a telescope? Well, we wouldn't see a UFO with a telescope. And they said, and these people said, nothing we have is confidential. That's what they said. Nothing NASA has is confidential. Now think about that. Satellite imagery, all this other stuff is not confidential. So
are they saying it's not confidential?
Entire NASA was not confidential. So
I guess what I'm saying is it below? Are they saying everything is below confidential, or are they saying everything is above confidential? Because confidential,
they said it is not confidential.
So that could be secret and top secret, or that could be completely unclassified.
Speaking out of both sides of their mouth, actually, because as it turns out, they have satellite imagery, and they just said what they were saying was everything they have is open to the public,
open source,
open to the public. So I just don't buy that. And again, I think those people there, put them on a lie detector, they're telling the truth. For what they knew. They're just the little compartmentalized bureaucrats that they were, and that's all their little world. That's all their little world was their little world, and that's all they knew. But again, it just boiled down to dollars. And I asked them, I said, how are we supposed to believe y'all that all of a sudden you want to study these things when you've told us they don't exist? They didn't really have a clear answer. And you have several different agencies, what I've found out, have said they don't exist. Now several different agencies say they do exist, and they're going to start studying them. So what has changed?
I don't know, but we kind of... let's talk about the money. We talked about this on a little warm-up video, but... what I don't understand is there's all the black budget programs, and we had talked about all the money that's going to Ukraine, which is basically feeding the military-industrial complex companies, which are overcharging the government, and that's how we both believe that these black projects are being funded by overcharging the government other areas and then funneling that money in. So do you think that they just believe this is an easy grab now that UFO, UAP
statistically,
activities?
And then when you see Schumer's come forward with his thing, and then I see all these UFO people saying, "Are you getting on board, Schumer's? We've got somebody that's really turned on." I mean, you got the swampiest of swamp creatures. I mean, I don't knock him. Every time I've met him and talked to him, he's been nothing but nice to me. But, it's just about money. We take in $5 trillion a year, and they want to spend over $7 trillion. And that's a conservative approach to these folks.
Wow. So did NASA, do they get in depth on what they're going to spend the money on, or is it just, hey, we need more money because we want to study these things? Are they saying, hey,
they couldn't get real specific again, and it's just limited. Their knowledge is limited. It's give us money so we can develop a plan. I mean, that's where it's going to come down to. Give us money and we'll develop a plan, and then we'll come back to you on how we've spent your money. And they'll come back with, it's inconclusive. So why? Because they can continue studying. If they found it and said, hey, we found life. We've got this saucer over here. We've got this group over here. They wouldn't need the dadgum money anymore. So obviously.
Yeah. So in your opinion, this is just complete nonsense.
Yeah,
we shouldn't be giving them.
Give them more money to stay. Listen, if you're going to go to Mars, stick to your knitting. Go to Mars. If we're going to use you to track Soviet satellites, then let's do that. If we're going to, everything else, I think they just need to stick to their knitting. So we go into the SCIF, which is, James Bond kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't have a Fitbit, but if you had a Fitbit, you had to take it off. You got a watch or anything electronic or a phone, you had to put it in the little, similar to the things they found the cocaine in at the White House, those kind of compartmentalized things. And so we go in. It's a big room, a lot of brass, a lot of suits, probably CIA or NSA or somebody, I don't know. And, and they gave us a great briefing on some really scary stuff that's going on in and around where they are. And
can you elaborate on any of that?
Not really, because of that's what I'm saying. This is a trap. We got to get in the SCIF to get this information. Well, in some instances, unless it's been put out, which most of this stuff at Eglin was put out by other people in the room. But if they tell you that stuff, it's secret, and you're not allowed to talk about it, unless the press has been out there. But anyway, and that's a trap. That's what they want to do with David Grusch. They want let's get him in the SCIF. Let's get this information. Well, it's kind of questionable if they do that, if we can even talk about it. Matt basically just says, hey, y'all have, it's not what we said we were coming down here for. And he said, I appreciate all this, but this isn't what we were told we were going to get to talk to pilots. We were going to see pictures. We were going to get to interview the pilots on what they saw. And they said, you can't do it. You don't have the, credentials or whatever. You don't have clearance to do
You don't
that.
have the clearance level.
Yeah. And, which is not true. What Matt said in the hearing, he said these were craft that were none of our enemies or our adversaries or friends had, and nobody in this world had this type of aircraft. Is that correct? And they all said, nope, nobody's got those.
Unanimously. Without hesitation?
Without hesitation.
Let's move into David Grusch.
I'd say it caught the country's attention the most. And I said, if you discredit him, if everything comes out and says he's a lie, we still got these two pilots. And I just think that they, I know Grusch, known him for some time. We text frequently or whatever. And, he's a very interesting guy. He's put into a tough situation. And again, why would you come out with all that? Because he's going to get humiliated publicly.
Yeah. Could you go through some of the stuff that he disclosed?
Yeah. Bodies. There are bodies. There are craft. And that went along with my line of questioning, my questions were kind of leading because I knew the answer, but I wanted them to say it, that they, we know this stuff's out there. somebody has it and how they keep it from us. Because the next thing would be, well, why didn't somebody come out with it then? Because the people that have it, that are looking at it probably right now, don't know what the heck they're looking at. Mm-hmm. And
he was talking about reverse engineering crafts.
That's right.
So where is he saying these crafts came from? Where did we recover them?
Some are archaeological now I could be putting conversations that I've had versus the committee, because you got to realize
Yep. You don't know.
I've been in so much of these meetings, and people call me, and then I get information and talk to these guys or text them or whatever. But some of them are archaeological in digs that people have found. Some of them are craft that have crashed recently that have just been covered up. But there's kind of a cutoff, I think, because of the technology. And that leads me back to that electro whatever radio that we think maybe caused them some difficulty and that caused some of these crashes, and that our technology has moved past that now. So you're probably not seeing those type of those crashes happening, if they are happening at all, because we've moved past the technology that we were using in the 40s and 50s and 60s and maybe in the 70s. But it's not transistors anymore, obviously.
So it was previous technology that was causing these things to crash. What technology?
It was a radio technology, some kind of radio technology we were using, and maybe in some of our radars and things like that we no longer use. And I apologize, I can't even remember the name of it. I should have read up on it again, but it was. I was told that by somebody pretty informed that thought that was probably the reason that all of a sudden that it started. And then all of a sudden it sort of stopped, because after we quit using that kind of technology, it quit. It apparently would not, and I don't know if shorten it out is the right thing, because I don't know what they're using.
Yeah.
But apparently is what it did was it would lock them up, kind of. Is that they continue to hide this. How can we trust the government that said they didn't exist? And then all of a sudden they say they do exist. And we're supposed to fund them to study it. I just think they'll trickle stuff out and keep that hook out there, and we'll just keep biting it.
Yeah.
Because that's human nature, and it's going to, but they know they got to.
I mean, when is the first time that you heard that we've recovered non-human biologics? Well, it obviously wasn't in the hearing.
Yeah. I don't know, a couple years ago.
What was your reaction?
Not surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised at anything anymore, man. Every time I just go back to my statement about every night I will tonight. I'll go out and look at those stars every night.
What happened after that hearing? A lot of what Grusch had to say was, I want to talk to you in a SCIF. Did you guys ever get the SCIF? Did you ever get the...
Never did.
You never got the SCIF. What's holding that up?
Well, I suspect somebody's got somebody's ear in leadership. And the Intelligence Committee / community, they didn't like what we did. They didn't like us.
Is that the committee in Congress or the Senate?
Well, there's one in both, but the Intelligence Committee in the House didn't want it. And, there's all these rivalries. It just happens. I mean, it's just human nature, dude. I don't, they're all my friends, but, we touched a nerve. We really did. And I feel like some people, they said this stuff doesn't exist, and they made fun of it, and then leading all three stations. I mean, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox, you name it. Newsmax, OAN. I mean, they just pounded it, and their ratings have gone through the roof. And I knew that that somebody was reading the polling data when Fox started calling, because it was just everywhere.
Yeah. Do you talk to the Senate committee at all?
Oddly enough, All those UFO people in the Senate that talk UFOs, a couple of them I've tried to have meetings with, and they've canceled the meetings.
Really?
Yeah, before all this even happened. And, oh, yeah, we'll meet with you.
Interesting.
And then they cancel it, and they never reschedule.
I've been trying like hell to get Marco Rubio in here to talk about it.
Ask him why he canceled the meeting with me.
I will. If I get him in here, I'll ask him that. What's coming next in Congress?
With this issue?
Yeah, with this issue.
Yeah, we'll have another committee, and what I'd like to bring in is some department people. I don't want to discuss too much about it because they'll end run me again. But we've got some pretty informed people that want to come in and talk about what's going on in their departments or what went on when they were there, and maybe hopefully issue some subpoenas to get some real information. This putting it in the SCIF is just, it's too edgy. It has to be leaked, out about the press, and then you can talk about it allegedly. I don't know. It's just ridiculous. And
Too much red tape.
Do what?
Too much red tape.
Well, it's that way on purpose.
Yeah.
Keeps the powerful in power, and they're the ones who make the rules. And how do you get to that much power? You got to be there for a while. You got to sell your soul.
Yeah. All right, one more subject before we wrap this up. 0 point energy.
Right.
I love talking about this subject. What's your opinion on it?
I think it's reality. I just don't think we've got it. We got that genie in the bottle just yet, or if we do, they're not putting it out because it would put them all out of business. And we wouldn't have these wars. Imagine all that energy we spend on the energy. I mean, not like energy as in, nuclear or anything like that. All that energy, brain width, we spend on all this stuff and all these wars and all these people that die. We wouldn't need it. We wouldn't need it. Imagine if this world just united behind something. I don't think they ever will, but if it limited what we would be fighting for.
Let me backtrack just real quick for the audience. So 0 point energy is basically technology that enables energy to be free. That means no more utilities, no more fossil fuels, no more any of that stuff. Everything is just powered by energy that is free. And supposedly Nikola Tesla figured this out a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
look what happened to him.
Yep. They confiscated all of his research.
Died alone in a motel room. Broken.
So 0 point energy, who do you think holds the technology?
I don't know. It'd have to be, we mentioned the industrial war complex, these multinational corporations.
Do you think it's Lockheed?
I think probably they got some. They'd have to have input in it. They control it, but yet they're still developing their jet engines and everything else through the process. But because that keeps their money. Once that 0 point comes out, they're all out.
Yeah.
So I feel like if they have it, they're holding on to it to keep us from getting it.
Interesting. Well, Tim.
Thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate the time. It was an honor to have you here. I can't wait for the next hearing, and we'll be watching. How can people support you?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Tim Burchett. I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to ask for anything campaign related since we're talking stuff. So you can just Google all that if you want. But
all right.
But I appreciate it. I've been very fortunate in life. I never had money. Mom and Daddy never did. Just hardworking people and put themselves through school and fought in the war and all that. And I've had good health and good people around me.
To our favorite subject with you, which is UFOs. You will take part in that classified briefing tomorrow. As far as my understanding is going, it's members only, so I don't think our cameras will be allowed in to see the action for ourselves. Correct me if I'm wrong, but set the scene for us in terms of what you're expecting, who's going to be there, who you'll hear from, who's in the hot seat.
I expect to walk out and be completely disappointed once again. I don't want to see little green men or flying saucers. I just want to know where they're spending the tens of millions of dollars on a subject they say doesn't exist, and yet they're spending this money. The American public has a right to know. Congress constitutionally has a right to know. You have unelected bureaucrats, once again, dictating to the elected body what to do, and we take it. We don't have the guts. We ought to cut their funding out. We ought to do what we're entitled to do as a Congress. But again, the big boys, the lobbyists, the defense industry, what have you, they have their hooks in all of this, and they're not going to allow us to see anything. It's so compartmentalized now, it'd be hard to get the truth. But this bunch, again, will just be there to confuse us and further frustrate me.
You're tired of the blurry jellyfish videos too, huh? Yeah. The rest of us also want to see some more. And by the way, thank you for your time, sir. This is the first interview where you haven't dropped a dadgummit. I'm a little disappointed.
Well,
we need to change that next
dadgummit,
time.
I'm sorry. Dadgummit, I'm sorry. I'll change that. I apologize.
I had to. Hey,
it was a surprise to not hear Daggum.
I know. Tim Burchett, thanks so much as always. We'll see you again here soon on the show.
So you just came from the briefing. Were you satisfied at what you heard? I know you.
No, my biggest thing all along, it's, obviously a lot of folks want to, it's little green men, it's flying saucers.
Right.
My concern is the tens of millions, if not billions of dollars that we've invested in the research of this issue since 1947 that we know of, and yet the federal government keeps telling Congress they don't exist, and yet obviously they're investigating something.
So you think?
And then when I have an admiral tell me they're real, when I have some of the top pilots in the world say they're real, I don't see why American taxpayers can't get that information.
So you think there have been billions potentially in government money that's been spent on developing something, or?
Well, I'd like to know that. Are they developing something, or have they recovered something that has allowed them to spend this much money?
When you come out of that briefing, what questions do you have?
I end up with more questions.
Every time, or just?
Yeah, always, because I always say it's like looking down the barrel of a .22 rifle. They are very specific in what they know, and it is very compartmentalized. It's like Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which I don't represent, but over 6,000 folks that work there live in the 2nd Congressional District that I represent. And they, during the Second World War, over 2,000 people were working on the bomb, and less than a half a dozen knew what they were working on, because it was so compartmentalized. I mean, husbands and wives did not know. Brothers and sisters who worked at the lab did not know because of that compartmentalization. And that's carried over into this. So say it was a recovered craft in 1947 at Roswell, New Mexico. Every person that was involved in that is dead now. And it's been passed on and passed on and passed on. And now with these private contractors who you in the press and we as Congress cannot access because they're not under FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, because they have passed it on to a private contractor. And is that by design? I don't know. But I still think we need to ask some questions, and we need to know some answers. Dadgummit, it's just going on too long, and there's no excuse for not giving us other than arrogance.
I hear you on asking questions, and that's part of your job, obviously. But I'm wondering beyond that, what comes next in your view?
Well, that's a great question. And I'm going to be working with the chairman. And since I'm not chairman of this so-called subcommittee, it is a subcommittee, I'm going to be working with them to get us an excellent list of witnesses for this next hearing. And I'm not going to release them because the last time I did that, the folks were literally told not to come.
By who?
We were told by NASA, a quasi branch of NASA, other groups. They claim they didn't do it, but the folks told me they did. And we'd asked over a dozen folks, that's 12. And we ended up with 3 excellent witnesses that put their love of this country over the love of themselves. Because obviously Grusch was ridiculed. He was outed as somebody that had PTSD. And in East Tennessee, we don't make fun of people because they served their country and suffered from it. we celebrate those people and we try to get them and support them. But in Washington, D.C., they destroy those people. And that just shows the ruthless nature, and that shows that we are over the target, that we have, as I was told, I have kicked a hornet's nest at the Pentagon.
I know you got a flight to catch, so we'll leave it there.
Sorry,
Thank you,
brother.
sir. Appreciate it.
Joining us now is Republican Congressman Tim Burchett. He attended that classified briefing. Congressman, great to see you and talk with you as always. Thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. So it's classified. I know you can't get into details. We get that. We understand it. But after being in that briefing, and now you're out of it, were you satisfied with what you heard?
No, it's always compartmentalized. We can't get to certain things. It's, you know, I don't really think of these people are lying. I think there's a lot of arrogance that kind of whirls around this so-called intelligence community. But what they do is they've compartmentalized it so that each department, they can only answer your question up to a certain point, and you can't get everybody in the SCIF at the same time to answer the question. So no, I mean, I literally, I was almost falling asleep in the meeting. It was just so mundane and boring, and a lot of the things they told us, you know, they explained some things that went on that were just like, okay, well then why are you having to tell us this in the SCIF? Why can't you tell the American public that? And you know, it's just
So do you think all
complete disinformation. Go ahead.
Joining me now, I have Republican Congressman from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, who took part in those hearings. Burchett, how you doing this morning, sir?
Dadgummit, it's a beautiful morning in America.
I knew it. I knew it. Okay, I have to ask you right off the top. Did you walk away yesterday satisfied, or did you say dadgummit? You know, did you want more from yesterday?
Oh, I always say dadgummit after these miserable hearings. They're bogus. Look, I could have answered every one of those dadgum questions, and you know it, and I know it. I know more about this than the average bear, I guess. Maybe that's the scary thought, but this thing's a cover-up. We're spending tens of millions of dollars on this issue, on something that some little arrogant jerk tells us in a SCIF with a man bun tells us that don't exist. And then we're looking at video right there, and you ask him about those specific videos, and he'll say, I have no data on that. And then he smirks.
I'm a little surprised that you call these hearings worthless. You've been kind of one of the ones spearheading this and pushing this forward for transparency. I'm surprised to hear you say that.
Well, it's because, you know, I know what needs to happen now. I mean, maybe I didn't at first, but at this point, all we're doing is rehashing other things, and we got more. And well, I guess if you want to hear more government officials that have some guts to tell us that these things actually do exist. I mean, I don't know anymore how much more proof we need of that. What we need is somebody in the executive office to come forth with this stuff, and I think Trump is the guy. He's tired of it. This is part of the D.C. sewer. These secrets they keep, it's for power, it's for control, it's greed, and all those things that drive this country.
Let me ask you about the Trump administration, because I know he just went on the Joe Rogan podcast not that long ago. He said UFOs, extraterrestrial life, not really my thing. Do you have confidence that his new administration will kind of change the game on transparency and we will, in fact, learn more?
Yes, ma'am. I have the utmost confidence in President Trump. In my conversations with him and his people, I believe he is about disclosure. And Rogan maybe knows a little bit more about it. And unless a president is ready, and as they say to these issues, they're not going to know unless it's something that they've followed. You know, we've had testimony to tell us that folks have told us that presidents have been denied access to this kind of thing. And you tell Trump he doesn't have access to something, you better just get out of the way, because he's going to run your ass over.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you and play a bit of sound, because I know Representative Mace raising some serious questions with former Pentagon officials during the hearing. Take a look at just kind of this Q&A portion real quick.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
Why are people, anytime they ask, why are they always thwarted? Why are they always judged? Why is they always have misinformation spread? Why is there always retribution? Why is it always met with an ear? What's the why? If it doesn't exist, why is it such a problem?
Yeah, so Congressman, I think my biggest question this whole time has been what's the use of the government covering up this department if it in fact does exist? Why not tell the American people, hey, we actually do have a department that looks at unidentified objects in our airspace? I mean, what's their gain from hiding that? I don't understand.
That's my boy Jared Moskowitz across the aisle. He was my Santa Claus last year at my
at your party.
At my party. We went 16 minutes last year. It's going to be 15 minutes this year because we felt it kind of dragged last year. You're invited, of course, if you'd like to come.
Thank you. I'll be looking for my invite.
It would up your standards. But anyway, no, the thing is just covered up, and that's the frustration of it. They say they don't exist, but they spend tens of millions of dollars on an issue that every department. We had people from NASA there, and I'm sure there were some spooks from the CIA that were watching to make sure nothing was said that would get their overlords in trouble. But the reality is this is a multi-level cover-up, and we're not going to, Congress, we don't have the ability or the guts to get to the bottom of this. Let's just be honest, Marquis. This dadgum thing has been covered up for over 50, 60 years now.
According to the whistleblowers, a long time. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And they're not going to give us any more information.
We're dealing with something that's light years ahead of us in technology. And so it's just they break off a little piece of it and then they figure it out. And then they try to move on to something else. But I think to do that would have to be in the corporate hands. And again, it's so compartmentalized, I don't know if we could ever get the truth out.
So if there were somebody that could say, hey, here's X marks the spot, this is where the UAP is, could you divide a task force and subpoena and answer?
We could subpoena it, but by then, it's so, this system's so corrupted, brother. I just think we'd rush over there and they'd moved it out weeks ago. I just don't think that's a possibility. I think it is in a situation that's so secure that it'd be very difficult to get to. I mean, if they deny presidents of the United States access to this information, which I fully believe they have, and they continue to do that, I don't think they'd blink at a congressional subpoena. I think that it is so compartmentalized that it'd be almost impossible until somebody who's with those craft or has actual pictures walks out with them and says, this is where they're at, tells the press, and then goes underground for a while, because I'm sure they'll probably commit suicide by shooting themselves in the back of the head 10 times.